Comment down what you think about these stories or just a hello, and the team will reply. We always reply to the comments. As always, please like and subscribe and help this channel grow. Thank you. It all started a few months ago when I broke up with my girlfriend, Chloe. She seemed fine with it at first, but looking back now, I can see she was not handling it as well as she claimed. She started showing up uninvited at my apartment, even in the middle of the night, begging me to get back together. When I refused, she grew increasingly upset, yelling and accusing me of leading her on. I started feeling uneasy whenever I saw her name on my phone. Then one night, as I left work, I spotted her car waiting in the parking lot. Before I could react, she sped towards me, chasing me down the street. My heart raced as I ran for my life, but there were no other cars around and she was gaining fast. I ducked into a nearby alley, hoping to lose her, but it was a dead end, with a high fence on one side and condos on the other. I turned to find her idling her car at the entrance, a wild look in her eyes. She got out of moving erratically, saying I couldn't escape her forever. I pressed against the fence, desperately looking for a way out, but I was trapped. As she advanced, hands upstretched, I knew I had to act fast. I grabbed a trash can and hurled it at her, hitting her hard. She stumbled back, stunned, and I seized the chance to sprint past her and out of the alley. I didn't stop running until I reached my apartment, where I hastily locked the door, hands shaking. The next day at work, she called me. Against my better judgment, I answered, hoping to reason with her. But she just taunted me, saying I looked like a hot cheetah during our thrilling chase. She vowed not to give up so easily. I felt sick as I hung up, knowing I had to do something. I talked to the police, but they said there was little they could do without evidence of a physical threat. Over the coming weeks, Chloe kept ambushing me, always gone before police arrived. Her unsettling phone messages became constant. I felt hunted, checking over my shoulder wherever I went. Finally, I took action. I installed a security camera in my apartment and started carrying a personal alarm. I also made sure to have an escape plan ready. It was a wise precaution. I came home one day to find Chloe waiting inside, a crazed glare in her eyes. As she rushed at me, I set off the alarm and fled to a neighbor's for safety, calling the police. When authorities arrived, they found her still there, screaming and raving. She was arrested, and I was able to breathe again. The camera and alarm had saved me from a dangerous attack. Looking back now, it's shocking how obsessive and unhinged she became. I never imagined she could harbor such darkness. The ordeal has left me anxious and on edge, constantly vigilant. But with help from friends, family, and my therapist, I'm starting to reclaim my life. I still flinch at loud noises and have nightmares of being chased, but simple coping techniques keep me grounded. Journaling provides an emotional outlet. Step by step, I'm healing, determined not to let this define me. What happened was not my fault, though the self-blame is hard to silence. But I refuse to let Chloe's sickness steal any more of my life. The future is mine, and I will face it with resilience. This painful chapter has shown me my own strength. I will thrive, not just survive, taking back my peace of mind. The road ahead may be long, but I'll walk it with my head held high, focusing on the light, not the darkness. I will not let her twisted obsession win. I know there will be good days and bad days, but I will take them one at a time, moving forward. With support from those who care, I will rediscover lightness and laughter again. I will honor my emotions without drowning in them. I will find joy in simple things: morning coffee, bird songs, sunsets. I will appreciate each breath, each moment of calm. I will surround myself with beauty and open my heart, though tentatively at first. I will have setbacks and dark days when ghosts of the past overtake me. But I will be patient with myself, curling into self-care until the storm passes. I will give myself permission to feel, releasing emotions in healthy ways. I will find strength in vulnerability. Sometimes memories will creep up on quiet nights, my mind retracing each detail. But I will remind myself that it is behind me now. The more I let it go, the less power it holds. I will take back control of my inner world. With time, counseling and self-work, I will rebuild my sense of safety. I will listen to my intuition and establish boundaries to protect my peace. I will learn not to ignore red flags out of wishful thinking. I will honor my worth and needs. Though shaken, my core self is intact. With compassion for my journey, I will integrate this experience into a deeper wisdom about life and humanity. I will allow it to open my heart, not close it. I will grow from it, becoming wiser yet softer. I don't know what the future holds, but I will meet it with courage, faith, and resilience. With inner light as my guide, I will keep moving forward, stronger for having survived the darkness. This will not break me. It all started with a simple phone call, the kind that would forever change the course of my life. My girlfriend, whom I had been dating for a little over a year, delivered the news that shook me to my core. She claimed she was pregnant and the due date conveniently fell just a week before I was set to leave for college. I was stunned, to say the least. We had always been careful, and the timing seemed too perfect, almost as if she had planned this. A part of me wanted to believe her, to support her through this unexpected and life-altering event. But something just didn't feel right. My mind raced as I tried to process this bombshell she had just dropped on me. Frantically, I asked her to send me a picture of the pregnancy test, and that's when the first red flag appeared. The image she sent looked oddly familiar, like one I had seen before on some stock photo website. I squinted my eyes, zooming in, and the realization hit me. This was not her test, but a cropped and edited image from the internet. My heart sank. I stared at the picture on my phone in disbelief. How could she lie about something so huge? I felt sick to my stomach as the gravity of the situation washed over me. Confronted with this evidence, my girlfriend tried to brush it off, insisting that the test was real and that I was just being paranoid. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. She had always been a bit possessive and had expressed concerns about our relationship lasting long distance once I left for college. Had this been her way of trying to keep me from going, or even worse, to trap me in a relationship I wasn't ready for? I recall all the times she had guilt-tripped me about leaving, made passive-aggressive comments about me abandoning her. At the time, I had brushed them off, assuming she was just anxious about the impending change. But now I saw those incidents in a new light. This was not normal behavior at all. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I asked her to come over and take another test in front of me. The dread I felt as she walked through the door was palpable. My hands shook and my mouth went dry. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears as I waited for her, wondering I was about to have my worst fears confirmed. I held my breath waiting for the result, and when the negative sign appeared, the relief was overwhelming. It felt as if a weight had been lifted from my chest. She had clearly lied to me, and I couldn't help but feel betrayed and angry. How could someone I trusted so deeply stoop to such a level of deception? The realization that our relationship had been built on a foundation of lies was a bitter pill to swallow. As she left, I resisted the urge to demand an explanation, to hurl accusations at her for putting me through this emotional roller coaster under false pretenses. A sense of unease settled in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't help but wonder what other lies she might have told, what other schemes she might have concocted. The thought of her going to such lengths to keep me from leaving filled me with a mixture of fear and disgust. In the days that followed, I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, wondering if she might show up unannounced, or if she might try to retaliate in some way. I half expected to find her parked outside my house, stalking me. The trust I had once held for her had been shattered, and I couldn't help but feel like I was living in a nightmare of her own creation. I started questioning everything she had ever told me. Had she really been visiting her parents those weekends she was supposedly out of town? Was she actually taking night classes, or did she make it up as an excuse to go out alone? How much of our relationship had been real and how much had been a facade? As I packed my bags and prepared to leave for college, the weight of the experience hung heavy on my mind. I was eager to get away, to put distance between us, yet a part of me worried she might follow me somehow. I couldn't help but wonder how I would move forward after this, how I would learn to trust again. In the end, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief as I drove away, leaving that chapter of my life behind. The miles stretched between us, and I felt myself start to breathe easier. But I knew the echoes of my ex-girlfriend's deception would continue to haunt me, a chilling reminder that sometimes the monsters we fear the most are the ones we've allowed into our lives. She would always represent the dark side of love, the lengths one person will go to possess and manipulate another. I went out of town for my best friend's wedding where I was a bridesmaid. Per the bride's request, I didn't bring my boyfriend at the time since we were having issues, and she wanted it to be her special day. I was fine with that. He's an ADD kid and forgot to refill his meds before I left for the 4-day trip. That's when his meltdown started. At first, we texted normally, but I couldn't always reply quickly since I was busy with wedding stuff. This aggravated him. He overdosed on Valium and texted that he was wandering outside all messed up. that he didn't answer his phone for 6 hours. I was freaking out so far from home, worrying if he wandered off while high or what. I broke down. My best friend's ex-cop stepdad sat with me and gave options on what I could do from a distance. Finally, I had a department manager check our place to see if he was still there or had left. Turns out he just fell asleep from all the stuff he took. The day of the ceremony, he lost it again because I couldn't talk with all the last-minute prep going on. Tensions were high for us bridesmaids as we focused on getting the ceremony going. I left my phone in my bag during it all. Came back to like 10 voicemails and 30-plus texts, half gibberish. This continued the whole weekend, so I stopped responding. Got home to torn blinds, a smashed DVD player, cooking oil spilled all over the kitchen floor that he made me clean, since it was apparently my fault, though I wasn't even home. My whole 50-plus bottle nail polish collection destroyed. I'm still finding cracked bottles and wondering how I'm not dead from the fumes. Red Kool-Aid splashed air. Even inside kitchen drawers, which I don't know how he managed. He didn't apologize, just said, "You made me do it. If you hadn't ignored me, this wouldn't have happened." We're clearly no longer together, but this was just one of many episodes with this guy. He'll be 30 next month. I feel bad for his next girlfriend having to deal with this. It was a traumatic experience I wouldn't wish on anyone. I went to what was supposed to be a fun weekend celebrating my best friend, and instead dealt with this scary situation so far from home. I felt overwhelmed and powerless to do anything while afraid for his safety. Coming home to the destruction was the final straw. I realized I couldn't deal with this behavior anymore and had to get out of the relationship. It wasn't healthy for either of us. I'm just glad I got what I did before things escalated even further. This whole ordeal is something I'll never forget, though I wish I could. Looking back, there were definitely some red flags I should have paid more attention to. He had a temper and could be possessive and jealous at times. I made excuses for him and thought I could help calm him down, but you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. The crazy escalated so gradually that it became the new normal for me, like the frog in slowly boiling water. But taking a step back during that weekend made me realize how unhealthy it had gotten. What frustrates me is that he never took responsibility or saw a problem with his actions. In his mind, he was a victim reacting normally to circumstances. I worry for any future girlfriends until he gets professional help, though he likely won't see the need for it. Some people can go through life in denial, doing harm to those around them. All I can do is make sure I don't repeat past mistakes and stand up for myself. Sharing my story helps too. It can motivate others in similar situations to find the courage to leave and break the cycle. Abuse thrives in silence. I hope that by opening up about what I dealt with, it makes others feel less alone. It helps prevent people from underestimating seemingly small warning signs that can turn dangerous over time. What happened still pains me, but it taught me a lot about myself. I'm stronger now and know how to avoid going down that road again. Ultimately, I feel lucky I escaped relatively unscathed physically and found the will to start fresh. Not everyone has that chance. The days leading up to the wedding were chaotic, but fun. Final dress fittings, bachelor/bachelorette parties, decorating the venue. It was nonstop celebrating with my closest girlfriends as we prepared for the big milestone in our friend's life. If I'd known what was awaiting me back home, it would have dampened that joy. But I tried my best not to let him ruin the wedding weekend itself after that first incident. Easier said than done, but I did my bridesmaid duties and kept the focus on my friend as much as possible. That's what she deserved. I'll never know if he genuinely overdosed that first night or was faking a suicide attempt to manipulate me. Either way, it was traumatizing. I still have nightmares sometimes where I'm helplessly watching him wander off and not being able to stop it. It hits that primal fear of losing someone you care about. Even after how terribly he started treating me, that instinct doesn't just vanish. The mind games he played were cruel, making me believe he could be dead in 1 minute, then acting like it was no big deal. In a way, I'm glad social media wasn't huge back then. If he posted vague, depressing status updates for all our friends to see, or blasted me for abandoning him, it would have made it even more embarrassing and difficult. At least the damage was contained between us, though it felt anything but private living through it. He'd call my roommate to rant about me not being sympathetic enough, trying to turn people against me. Luckily, she knew his behavior was sketchy and had my back. After the third day of harassment, I began screening his calls and texts. Each time my phone vibrated, my chest tightened, wondering what manipulation or guilt trip awaited now. I debated not going to the rehearsal dinner to avoid any drama and pleading illness. but my friend didn't deserve me bailing at the last minute because of his issues. So I pulled myself together and focused on all the effort she put into this event. I couldn't let her down. My boyfriend's feelings couldn't trump everything and everyone else in my life forever. Live and learn, I guess. I don't regret trying to make it work and salvage things. That's human nature when you care about someone. But the signs were there all along that it would only get worse. Now I better trust my instincts when people show you who they are. Toxic sheep. You have to watch their actions. It had been nearly a year since we broke up, and I was finally starting to feel like myself again. The relationship had been toxic, full of jealousy and manipulation on their part. I was relieved when it ended, thinking I could move on with my life. That's when the friend requests started coming in. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. We had many mutual friends, so getting a request from a stranger with a familiar-looking profile picture didn't seem too odd. I accepted it and moved on without thinking much of it. Over the next few weeks, though, the requests kept coming. Each time from someone new, but all with eerily similar names, profile pictures, and bios to my ex. It messaged me constantly, bringing up inside jokes from our relationship. Places we had been, things we had done together. It was unsettling how much they seemed to know. I asked our mutual friends if they knew anything about these accounts, but no one had heard of them. I blocked each one after they messaged me, but a new one always popped up. After the fifth account messaged me, I decided to do some digging. Most of the profile pictures were slightly distorted, like they had been run through a filter. The writing style and messages seemed slightly off, too, as if written by a computer program trying to mimic human conversation. A creeping suspicion entered my mind that my ex was behind this, creating fake accounts using AI and deepfake technology to continue contacting me. It seemed crazy, but somehow felt possible from them. They had always been possessive and refused to let the relationship go even after I ended it. I changed all my privacy settings, hoping that would stop new requests coming in. For a few weeks, it seemed to work. Then the emails started. Emails from vaguely named accounts, but the messages contained personal details only my ex would know. It had to be them deliberately trying to stalk me by creating this false digital persona. Part of me wanted to tell them to leave me alone, but I knew engaging would only encourage the behavior. So I changed my email address and deleted my old accounts, trying to do a digital detox to prevent them from accessing me. For months it seemed to have worked. I felt free, like I had finally gained control and put the unhealthy obsession behind me. But I should have known it wasn't over. One day, I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. The profile picture was unfamiliar, and at first I thought it was just another random friend request. Then I looked closer at the image. The features were slightly off, blurred around the edges in a way that resembled fake AI-generated faces. The bio contained cryptic references to things only my ex would know. The messaging style, while appearing normal at first glance, had the same subtle oddness as the previous fake accounts. My stomach sank as I realized this was indeed my ex behind this new persona. They had evolved their tactics, using improved technology to create an identity uncannily similar to their own. It felt like they had resurrected themselves digitally, determined to haunt me in whatever new form necessary. I struggled to process the bizarre nature of what was happening. How had they taken this manipulation so far? It seemed there was no escape. Every time I tried to regain distance, they found a way back in. I couldn't keep living like this, constantly watching over my shoulder, paranoid they would pop up in some new fake identity. I knew that I had to take real action. I hired lawyers to investigate the fake accounts and build a harassment case against my ex. It was a grueling process, but finally there was a legal record of what they had done. I hoped having consequences would make them stop. It's been quiet since, and the fake accounts have slowed. But I still feel haunted, like some digital ghost of my ex is out there watching me through the screen. I don't know how to make it stop fully or if that's even possible anymore. For now, all I can do is remain vigilant and refuse to engage with even the most convincing fake persona. The relationship is long dead, but it seems its toxic effects will linger online. I just have to keep believing that someday I will be free. The months of stalking and harassment took a toll on my mental health. I found myself unable to focus at work, constantly distracted by the paranoid feeling I was being watched. My productivity plummeted and I had trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I knew I needed help. After talking to my doctor, I started seeing a therapist who specialized in digital harassment trauma. She validated my experiences and helped me process the bizarre reality of having an ex use AI to impersonate themselves. Together, we worked on coping techniques to reduce my anxiety and regain a sense of safety. With professional support, I started feeling more empowered and less haunted by what had happened. I stepped up security on online devices and accounts, did a deep clean of my online presence, and committed to not engaging with any suspicious activity. It was a long process, but in taking control of my digital life again, I regained power over the situation. I still occasionally feel that twinge of unease when an unfamiliar follow request comes in, wondering it's my ex's latest digital incarnation, but I've learned not to let those small triggers spiral me back into paranoia again. While it may take time to fully move past such a traumatic experience, I know I'm on the path forward. And if my ex tries any new tactics, I'll be ready. I won't let myself be manipulated again, digitally or otherwise. The healthiest thing is focusing on my own growth, not looking over my shoulder for ghosts of relationships past. My story is a cautionary tale of just how far digital harassment can go nowadays. But it's also about resilience. With the right help and personal strength, even the most persistent stalker can be overcome. I'm still rebuilding and healing, but now have the tools and support needed to take my life back. It all started when my girlfriend Jane and I began having problems in our relationship. We had been together for over a year, but things just weren't working out anymore. I knew I had to break up with her, but I was dreading that conversation. Little did I know Jane was not going to let me end things so easily. The day I worked up the nerve to break up with her, Jane seemed to already know it was coming. She barely reacted when I said we needed to talk. I explained kindly that I thought we should end our relationship. That's when things got weird. Jane refused to accept that it was over. She insisted we were meant to be together and said she would not leave my apartment until I changed my mind. I was stunned by her reaction. I tried to reason with her, but she would not listen. I said firmly it was over and she needed to leave. Jane refused. I even said I would call the police if she did not go. She called my bluff, saying they could not make her leave if she lived there. I thought that was crazy. She did not actually live with me. Jane just stayed over a few nights a week, but she smugly told me she had taken steps to make sure she could not be forced out. Jane had filled out paperwork to have her mail forwarded to my address. She showed me a piece of mail addressed to her at my apartment as proof. I was horrified when I realized the implications of what she had done. The police might very well consider Jane a tenant if she received mail at my residence. I pleaded with her to leave, but she remained defiant. After hours of fruitless arguing, I had no choice but to call my landlord for help. When I explained the bizarre situation, my landlord was sympathetic, but said his hands were tied. If Jane had established residency by having mail sent there was little he could do. He suggested I move out and allow him to evict Jane instead, since she was not on the lease. Reluctantly, I agreed to this plan. The next day, I packed up my essential belongings and moved into a hotel temporarily. My landlord served Jane with eviction papers, stating she had 30 days to vacate. I was hopeful she would finally leave my apartment willingly once she realized I was serious about ending things. But Jane continued to drag her feet. She contested the eviction order, drawing out the process even longer. After several weeks staying in hotels and on friends' couches, I reached my breaking point. I told my landlord to re-sign the eviction against me. I was moving back into my apartment, whether Jane was still there or not. To my great relief, when I returned to the apartment, Jane was finally gone. Her angry texts made it clear she blamed me for ruining our relationship by involving the landlord. I ignored her messages and changed the locks just in case she had made copies of my key. The whole nightmarish ordeal lasted over a month from start to finish. Jane's obsessive and erratic behavior was frightening. I realized I had narrowly escaped a toxic situation that could have become dangerous. From then on, I was much more cautious about who I dated and kept private until trust was firmly established. In hindsight, there were red flags about Jane's controlling tendencies that I overlooked. But never in my wildest dreams did I expect a breakup to go so awry. She took advantage of tenant laws to cling to a broken relationship that I was ready to leave behind. I am grateful I was able to get Jane out of my life for good, with minimal lasting damage. My landlord was understanding about the bizarre circumstances, and we were able to repair our rental relationship. Besides the stress of those few weeks, my crazy ex-employee did not completely derail my housing or finances. Still, the experience left me shaken and much warier when entering new relationships. I never wanted to end up in a similarly nightmarish scenario. From then on, I kept all residences strictly in my own name when dating someone new. I advised my friends to do the same to avoid manipulative situations. In a way, going through that ordeal gave me greater clarity on what I wanted in a partner. I knew the importance of finding someone who respected my feelings and decisions. Healthy relationships are built on mutual trust, not obsessive control tactics. I was not going to let Jane's crazy stunt turn me off from love altogether, but I approached future dating with realistic caution, protecting my independence until I was sure I had found the right person. My friends could not believe what Jane tried to pull off, but her scheme to force our relationship to continue against my will gave me greater insight into the importance of setting boundaries. I learned to recognize warning signs early and walk away at the first red flag. After my experience with Jane, I gained the confidence to stand up for myself. Never again will I let someone trap me in an unhealthy situation, no matter how cunningly manipulative they try to be. What I went through was a frightening wake-up call, but it made me wiser about protecting myself in the future. In a way, going through that challenging experience strengthened my resolve and self-reliance. I learned I could get through even intense adversity and come out the other side intact. Jane wanted to make me feel powerless, but her overreach had the opposite effect. Facing down her extreme tactics gave me confidence I could handle anything. Her behavior was clearly irrational and not my fault. I stopped blaming myself for how things ended with Jane. This allowed me to process what happened with a balanced perspective, feeling wiser rather than embittered. I was determined not to become jaded about relationships just because of one person's vindictive actions. With hindsight, I could see warning signs I had overlooked or excused in Jane's past actions. Going forward, I knew to trust my gut instincts at the first hint of controlling behavior. I would never again ignore red flags or give someone the benefit of the doubt after exhibiting toxic patterns. It was a harsh but necessary lesson about self-preservation. For a long time after that breakup, just hearing Jane's name made me tense up. She had become a symbol of relationship trauma to me, but with time, I was able to think about her without feeling distressed. The intensity of those emotions faded as I gained distance and objectivity. While I'll never forget what Jane put me through, I don't want that experience to negatively impact my life. I resisted allowing it to make me bitter or paranoid about romance. I knew there were healthy, caring partners out there. When the time was right, I would be able to open myself to love again without fear. Jane's behavior said more about her issues than any shortcoming of mine. I refused to let her harm me further by damaging my ability to trust. It was a sunny Tuesday afternoon when my world was turned upside down. I had just gotten home from work and let my golden retriever Buddy out into the backyard like I always do. After changing clothes, I went back downstairs only to find Buddy was nowhere to be seen. The gate was wide open. My heart dropped into my stomach as I frantically searched every inch of my house and yard calling his name. Nobody. I sprinted next door to ask my neighbors if they had seen him. Surely he couldn't have gone far in the short time I was upstairs, but no one had seen him. I printed out lost dog flyers with his photo and my phone number, taping them to every telephone pole in the neighborhood. Where could he be? My mind raced with worry. Just as I was about to get in my car and drive around searching, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hesitantly, I answered. A familiar voice was on the other end. It was my ex-girlfriend, Sarah, the one I had a nasty breakup with last month. She spoke softly and sweetly, saying, "Hi, James. I found Buddy wandering by the park near your house. He seemed lost, so I picked him up. I have him here with me." My heartbeat quickened. How did she know Buddy was missing? Why did she have him? I demanded she give him back immediately and started questioning her. She acted confused, pretending she was just trying to help by rescuing him. But I knew better. Sarah had always been obsessive and vindictive. I broke things off when her unstable behavior became too much. She must have stolen Buddy to get back at me. I jumped in my car and raced to the park, where Sarah was casually strolling with Buddy on a leash. She waved and smiled like nothing was wrong. I yanked the leash away, hugging Buddy close as he licked my face, his tail wagging. Sarah feigned innocence, but I was sure she had orchestrated this entire thing. When I got home, my neighbor ran out and showed me his security camera footage from earlier that day. There was Sarah, creeping into my backyard and leading Buddy out by the collar. That sneaky psycho had made a copy of my house key. I confronted her over text, demanding she confess, but she continued playing dumb, saying she just happened to find Buddy. I threatened to go to the police. Finally, Sarah snapped, unleashing a tirade of unhinged texts. She admitted taking Buddy to punish me for breaking her heart, said I deserved it for abandoning her, that she loved him too and wanted him for herself. The messages were riddled with typos and erratic ramblings. I told her to never contact me again and blocked her number. I was rattled knowing my abusive ex had invaded my home and tried to steal my beloved pet. I changed the locks and installed security cameras, but I still worried what else Sarah might do. She knew where I lived and had proven herself capable of bizarre criminal behavior. A few weeks later, I came home to find Buddy shaking in the corner. There was a half-eaten steak on the floor that I didn't buy. Someone had been here. I searched the entire house but found no sign of forced entry. However, small things seemed misplaced, as if they'd been touched or moved. Photos tilted on the walls, pillows in different spots. My stomach turned imagining Sarah creepily lurking through my home, touching my belongings. I realized she must have made copies of my new keys somehow. She was still finding ways to get inside. I considered moving but couldn't afford it. The invasion of privacy and violation left me feeling unsafe in my own home. I worried what she might do next. Harm me, harm Buddy, burn the place down. Her obsessive, unbalanced mind knew no limits. I regretted ever getting involved with someone so unstable, but I had no idea what a disturbed, vengeful person she was until it was too late. The manipulative lies and mind games all became clear after I ended things. While I tried to move on with my life, Sarah's harassment and delusions had pulled me back into her toxic web of crazy. I hoped she would just go away eventually if I ignored her, but I couldn't ignore the feeling of unseen eyes watching me in my own home, nor the lingering fear of not knowing what her twisted obsession might lead to next. For now, keeping the authorities uninvolved and minimizing contact felt safest, but I knew one day I'd have to take more drastic action if her frightening behavior escalated. Until then, I could only increase security, stay alert, and hope she would tire of terrorizing me and Buddy. I decided to install motion sensor lights and cameras covering every possible entry point to my home. I also changed the locks again, this time going with high security titanium ones instead of standard hardware store variety. But even with all these precautions, I still didn't feel safe. One night I came home late from working overtime to find the front door unlocked. My hands shook as I cleared each room, unsure what I might find. At first glance, nothing seemed disturbed, but I couldn't shake that uneasy feeling that I was being watched. I found Buddy cowering under my bed, too scared to come out. Seeing him like that, terrified in his own home, filled me with rage. Enough was enough. First thing in the morning, I was going to the police and filing a restraining order. But that night, I had barely slept a wink. Strange noises kept jolting me awake, and I peered out the window numerous times, expecting to see Sarah lurking in the shadows. Exhausted and on edge, I dropped Buddy off at doggy daycare the next day for his own protection. Then I went straight to the police station, armed with evidence. The texts, camera footage, even strands of Sarah's hair I had found on my pillow. Finally, I was granted a restraining order, but that piece of paper alone couldn't offer much comfort or security. Sarah had already shown she didn't care about laws or boundaries. I had to accept that a deranged psyche wouldn't be deterred by legal threats. This thought chilled me deeply. Over the next few weeks, things seemed to settle down and return to normal. Maybe finally going to the authorities had scared Sarah off for good. I started to lower my guard a bit, hoping the worst was behind me. Until I arrived home after work one night to find Buddy utterly spooked, howling and scratching frantically at the back door. I opened it to discover my grill overturned, backyard destroyed, and the words, "I will get him back," spray painted menacingly on my fence. My hands were shaking and heart pounding out of my chest. Any sense of safety or normalcy I had felt was shattered in an instant. It was clear Sarah's harassment was not over. She remained completely unhinged and unpredictable. I scooped Buddy up and held him close, overcome with anger and fear. I felt violated and tormented in my own home, like I was the one being held hostage by her psychotic break from reality. It was just another regular day at the office when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, so I hesitantly answered. A shrill voice immediately started yelling at me, going on about how I was incompetent and provided terrible customer service. I was totally confused and asked who was calling. She said her name was Jessica and claimed to be my fiancé David's ex-girlfriend. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. Even though David and I have been happily engaged for over a year now, I knew he had an extremely turbulent past relationship with Jessica that did not end well. From what David told me, she was obsessive, controlling, and unstable. Their whole relationship was a mess that ended with Jessica basically stalking David before he finally cut off all contact with her. I try to calmly explain to Jessica that I think she has the wrong number and I have never provided her any customer service. But she just kept ranting about how rude and lazy I apparently was when I served her food last week. I reiterated that I do not work in food service, but she refused to listen. She then started rambling about how much better she and David were together and how I'll never compare to her. I was getting anxious at this point, so I firmly stated, I do not know you or anything about your past relationship. Please do not contact me again. And I quickly hung up. My hands were shaking a bit as I processed what just happened. It all felt like a bad dream. When I told David about the bizarre call from Jessica later that night, he was furious. He could not believe she obtained my work number and was still harassing him through me. I tried to calm David down, but he said he is going to pursue legal action if Jessica contacts either of us again. Over the next few weeks, I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder, worried Jessica might show up somewhere. I even had nightmares about her banging on our front door screaming. It put me totally on edge. David was my rock through it all, though. He held me if I got anxious and assured me he would keep me safe. About a month after the phone call, just when I finally started to feel at ease again, I began noticing strange things around the house. Small objects seemed out of place. Cabinets were left open and lights were switched on that I know I had turned off. One night I woke up to use the bathroom and could have sworn I heard footsteps downstairs. David installed a home security system right away and we filed a police report. But since there were no signs of forced entry and nothing valuable taken, the cops could not do much yet. David speculated that Jessica might have made a copy of his house key while they were dating and still had it. We changed all the locks just to be safe. Things escalated when I came home from work one evening to find our bedroom ransacked, drawers dumped out, closet torn apart, pillows shredded with the stuffing pulled out. Whoever did it also smashed our framed photos and ruined my jewelry. Scribbled all over the wall in what I pray was just red paint were sinister messages and threats directed at me. David and I were both horrified. We immediately filed another police report and installed security cameras outside. I insisted we stay at a hotel for a few nights until things settled down. David agreed it was for the best. With the new evidence, the police were finally able to pursue stalking and burglary charges against Jessica. David showed them text messages from her number, and they managed to match her fingerprints in our bedroom. Jessica was arrested soon after and hit with a restraining order. The months following her arrest were challenging, but David and I stuck together through it all. We sought counseling to process the trauma, and our relationship grew even stronger. It took time, but eventually we found peace of mind again. Jessica pled guilty to the charges and is thankfully now out of our lives for good. The horror is over. We still get anxious sometimes thinking about what happened, but David and I try not to let it control us. We focus on the future we are building together, not the darkness of the past. I know our love can withstand anything, even a crazy ex. This experience brought us closer than ever. I will never forget the terror I felt when Jessica first contacted me at work that day. Her obsessive harassment and attacks left scars that took time to heal. But David was there for me through all of it. His strength and devotion kept me grounded. Together, we found the courage to move forward. Our relationship was tested in the worst possible way, but the love David and I shared proved resilient. We chose not to let Jessica's cruelty harden our hearts or drive us apart. Instead, we faced the fear hand in hand, and our bond grew deeper. Jessica wanted to destroy what David and I have, but our love was too strong. The pure joy we feel being together was always worth fighting for. I'm so grateful we had each other to lean on during the darkest times. With David by my side, I know I can conquer anything life throws my way. The future is bright again thanks to him. It was supposed to be a fun night out with friends. I should have known better than to trust him, my ex-boyfriend, but I let my guard down. We were at a party, and he had graciously offered to be the designated driver. As the night went on, I found myself drinking more than I should have. When it was time to leave, I stumbled out to the car, relying on him to get me home safely. However, that's not what happened. Instead of taking me directly to my house, he dropped me off about a block away in an unfamiliar neighborhood. I was disoriented and confused when I got out of the car, wondering why we weren't in front of my place. Reaching for my phone to call for help, I realized with growing panic that it was gone. He must have taken it from me while I was distracted. Trying not to let the fear set in, I started walking, hoping to find a street I recognized. But the more I walked, the more lost I became. All the houses and streets looked the same, and I couldn't seem to find my way back to anything familiar. My heart was pounding in my chest as the realization dawned on me. He had intentionally left me stranded in an unfamiliar neighborhood without my phone. I don't know how long I wandered, searching for any sign of where I was. The shadows grew longer, and the streetlights flickered to life, casting an eerie glow over the quiet suburban streets. I tried to stay calm, to think rationally, but the panic was rising within me. What if he never came back? What if I couldn't find my way home? As the minutes ticked by, I became increasingly disoriented and distraught. I started calling out, hoping someone would hear me and come to my aid, but the streets remained eerily silent. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything looked the same, and I couldn't find my way back to where he had dropped me off. Exhaustion and fear began to take their toll, and I sank down on a nearby curb, hugging my knees to my chest. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the gravity of the situation. He had left me here, alone and helpless, as some kind of twisted joke. I couldn't believe he would do this to me. Time seemed to stand still as I sat there, waiting and hoping that he would come back for me. But as the minutes turned into hours, my hope began to fade. I knew I had to find a way to get help, but without my phone, I was completely cut off from the outside world. In a desperate attempt, I started knocking on doors, pleading with the residents to let me use their phone. But most of them either didn't answer or simply turned me away, not wanting to get involved. I was running out of options, and the fear of being alone in this strange neighborhood all night was overwhelming. Just when I was about to give up, a kind-looking elderly woman opened her door and took pity on me. She let me use her phone to call the police, and within minutes, a squad car pulled up. I poured out the whole story to the officers, my voice trembling with emotion. They listened intently, their expressions darkening as I described what my ex-boyfriend had done. Without hesitation, they sprang into action, calling for backup and initiating a search. It wasn't long before they located my ex-boyfriend, still at the party, seemingly unaware of the chaos he had caused. I was taken to the police station, where I spent the next 32 hours being questioned and processed. It was a surreal and traumatic experience, but I was grateful to be in a safe place, away from the nightmare that had unfolded. The police assured me that they were taking the situation seriously and would do everything in their power to ensure my safety. In the end, my ex-boyfriend was charged with reckless endangerment, false imprisonment, and theft. The thought of him facing consequences for his actions provided some measure of relief, but the emotional scars would take much longer to heal. As I reflect on that terrifying night, I can't help but feel a sense of disbelief and anger. How can someone I had once trusted so deeply have done this to me? The betrayal cuts deep, and I know it will take time to fully process and overcome the trauma. But I'm determined to move forward, to reclaim my sense of safety and independence. This experience has made me stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the importance of surrounding myself with people who truly care about my well-being. I vow to never let my guard down so easily again, and to always trust my instincts when it comes to the people in my life. In the end, the only thing that matters is that I'm alive and safe, even if the scars of that night will forever be a part of me. I may have spent 32 hours in jail, but the real nightmare was the one my ex-boyfriend had orchestrated. It's an experience I wouldn't wish on anyone, but has also taught me the value of self-preservation and the strength to overcome even the most harrowing of circumstances. Thanks for listening in. If you like these stories and want to hear more, then please subscribe and like and support this new channel. We have more stories for you to listen to.